Welcome back to the Humble Rising podcast. I am your host, Aditi Vargas, and today, as promised, we are talking about something that most people, I would say, not just high achieving women, most people don't talk about until it's too late. I have a friend who works a lot with senior leaders internally at a company, and she was asking me, how do we prevent leaders from burning out? How do we actually prevent it? Because oftentimes we're addressing it when it's already happening and it's affecting the team, it's affecting the work. How can we get ahead of it? And how do we address it before you actually hit that place? Burnout is not always the crash and burn kind that you might expect, but sometimes it's slow and it's quiet and it's not linear. There's this perception that burnout is like this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, and then it all comes crashing down. And that's not always what it's like. Sometimes burnout creeps in while you're still performing at a very high level. You're still showing up, you're still holding it all together, or so it appears. And I know this personally. Years ago, I missed the signs. I say I missed the signs, but I probably saw them. I just brushed everything off. I told myself I was just tired. I told myself to push through. I definitely told myself, don't be weak. Like, you're stronger than this. Keep it together, hold it together. Until my body and my spirit were like, we're done. Like, this is enough. We're done. And I went through a lot of different things that led me to burnout and depression. And there is an episode on this in the podcast. I will drop it in the show notes. There's an episode on my burnout if you want more details on that, just so you can hear about my journey, and maybe it resonates, maybe it doesn't, but you can see a picture of what burnout and depression can look like and how it can impact you. But in this episode, I want to help you spot burnout before it takes over. So let's take a quick minute to talk about why this really does matter. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, you know that I focus on women, you know that I focus on women of color, you know that I focus on high achieving women. And oftentimes we are taught to be strong. Even when sometimes you don't feel like being strong, you're taught that you have to be strong, or you look at the women in your family and you're like, well, she went through all that and she's fine. Although I will argue that that's not always true. But the perception of it is you see these people go through insurmountable things, what seem to be insurmountable obstacles and challenges. And you make meaning of that and you interpret that as, well, if they could do that and they kept it together, quote unquote, kept it together, why can't I? We are taught and conditioned to be dependable, reliable, excellent at everything that we do. We often override signals, right? Our own signals in service of being on all the time. But the truth is that sustainable success really requires that we listen to ourselves before our bodies say, I'm done. Before our bodies make us stop. Before our bodies say, I've had enough. Because your body will tell you in different ways. And it's very important to learn your body and what it is telling you. Often people think, oh, I have this feeling about something. And before you have a feeling, before you can articulate that you feel a certain way about something, for example, before you say, I feel frustrated, your body feels the frustration. There's a manifestation in your body of that frustration. The seconds and the space between how you feel in your body and how you're able to articulate it, there's this small delay. It's very tiny. And I don't want to say delay because that's too strong of a word, but there is this lag of time that happens between your body feeling something and then the message getting to your brain saying, I am frustrated. But oftentimes we don't listen to what our body is telling us. We're stuck in the mind. And if there's anything you take away from what I'm telling you today in this episode, is to listen to what your body is telling you. Your body screams sometimes. And when you don't listen, your body doesn't like that. It'll show you in different ways how to get you to do the thing it needs you to do. Most oftentimes it is rest, but not always. Burnout doesn't always show up as exhaustion. It often shows up as overfunctioning, irritability, or just a lack of fulfillment and joy or pleasure, right? So let's talk about 5 subtle signs of burnout that might be not so loud. They might be whispering to you right now. And every single one of these I've experienced, many of my clients have experienced, because a lot of them come to me right when they're on that verge of burnout. Because if you're at burnout already, I typically suggest and recommend you work with a licensed therapist alongside our work or before we work together. But I want you to know that what I'm about to share with you in this episode is not from just my personal experience, but from those I've worked with. That's where this data is from. And it's not just from my mind or the clouds. It is from experience, both personal and work-based. So the first sign is that you start to feel numb. You're not just tired. You're doing all the things, but you don't feel anything about them. Or you're starting not to feel how you used to feel about them. There's just a lot less joy. There's less excitement. Sometimes it's not even frustration. It's just, meh. It is what it is. Meh. That feeling of, oh, well. Numbness is one of the most overlooked signs of burnout. It means your nervous system has likely been in such an overdrive mode for so long that it's now starting to shut down to protect you. So it's not about you being lazy. You're overloaded emotionally and mentally. And so you start feeling this numbness. You stop feeling connected to what you're doing, even if it's work that you historically have cared about. That happened to me. I loved my work and all of a sudden was like, I don't care. I feel nothing. That's dangerous, especially when you're someone who tends to love your work and feel really engaged by your work. Here's where you lose the ability to experience passion or even meaningful frustration because everything starts to feel like it's nothing. So maybe you used to love mentoring people, junior colleagues, or you used to love leading a team meeting or leading your team, and now you're just like, I just want to get through it. Maybe you got promoted and didn't feel anything and just thought, okay, what's next? All right. Or maybe you go to things with friends or family, or even something that's really special. Maybe it's your daughter's art show or her recital, or one of your kids has some event and you're there and you realize I wasn't really there. I was checked out. That's what I talk about when I mean numbness. That's one of the first signs. And when I say one of the first signs, there are a multitude of signs, and they don't go in this order that I'm explaining them to you in. I just wanted you to have 5 of the signs, of the many signs that I've seen be very common in case you are experiencing these as well. But I don't want you to think this list is exhaustive or that it's in order, because it is not. Okay? So the second sign is that your tolerance starts to lower, especially with people that you love and you care about. So when your emotional tank is empty, even small requests, small questions, or interruptions can feel like massive intrusions and feel extremely annoying. That's irritability. You're irritable. This type of irritability is it's like your system, your entire system. It's a cry for space. It's not a reflection of your character. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a bad leader. It doesn't mean you're a bad friend. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It means you need space. You might be more reactive. Like if you're listening to me and you say, yeah, I feel like I'm more reactive, my level of tolerance is lower, I feel more withdrawn, I'm feeling like I'm more avoidant with the people that I'm closest to typically, and then it often leads to you feeling shame or guilt later. That's what I'm talking about. This can really chip away at your relationships, especially with your kids, especially with family, friends, if you leave this unchecked. Especially if you're not talking about how you're feeling and not being honest about what's going on with you. So people can understand, hey, what's up with you? Like you've been really distant lately. Sharing how you're feeling is super important. So they can try to understand and be there to support you. So maybe this shows up for you in different ways. It could be that your kid, when you get home, or your partner, or even like a family member asks how your day is going. You see them in person and they say, oh, how was your day? And you instantly feel annoyed by the question. And you're like, leave me alone. Or maybe you have a child who needs help with homework. And you know that you typically do that. You typically work with them on their homework. And this time you huff and puff and you sigh out loud, like, ah, because you're annoyed by the request. And then you immediately feel bad after because you understand, okay, that wasn't the right response. Or maybe you're so just done with people's requests of you. It's the thought that if one more person asks me for something today, I'm going to lose it. If you're starting to feel like that, pay attention. Pay attention. The third sign is that you are overly focused on being productive, but nothing feels fulfilling. So you're checking boxes, you're doing your to-do list, but you feel no real sense of progress or meaning in what you're doing. This is the burnout success paradox we experience. You're performing at a very high level, but it feels hollow. There's a hollowness to it. Maybe not all of it, but a lot of it feels empty and hollow, and you're stuck in doing mode. But I'm going to keep doing the thing. I have to do the thing. I have to keep executing. I have to keep doing it. And most of the doing comes from expectation of others. It's not wanting to disappoint people because you're functioning. You're like, I don't want to disappoint them. I want to make sure they know I'm committed. I want them to I want to make sure they know I'm reliable, that I am responsible, that I am great at what I do. So you're in do mode. You're still on the treadmill, but you're disconnected from any sense of meaning or impact. And so in this state, you actually might find yourself chasing more work to do because it's a distraction and more achievements to fill the emptiness, but they don't land and they don't make you feel the way that you expect them to. It creates us this cycle of striving with no satisfaction. So maybe you cross 10 things off your list and you still feel like, I didn't do anything. You still feel behind. Or you hear people tell you that you're doing a great job or that you're crushing it, but it feels like nothing. Or you keep thinking to yourself, I just have to get through this quarter, but that's every quarter. Or I just have to get through this month, but that's every month. I have to get through this week, but that's every week. Pay attention to those thoughts that you're having. Explore them. Pay attention. Get curious about them. The fourth sign is that you are having this constant internal dialogue of, I should. This is that persistent voice of guilt or obligation, right? It's a signal that there's this inner critic, this inner gremlin that's trying to run the show. Now, we can talk about what that really means. Sometimes it's your inner child. Let's not talk about that now, but that is a conversation for another day, right? What is the root of the inner critic? What actually is that? What does it mean? Conversation for another day. You know what I'm talking about. That voice in your head that is telling you all the things you should be doing and you're supposed to be doing. It's a huge drain on your mental energy. You're pressuring yourself to do more, to be more, to show up perfectly in every area of your life, even though you are clearly depleted. You may feel like you're never doing enough, even when you're maxed out. And this pressure you put on yourself, which again, we're conditioned to put on ourselves. It's not your fault. You're conditioned to put this kind of pressure on yourself. You were trained and taught to do this. The messages you got when you were younger and when you were well into your career taught you these things. So I don't want you to think it's your fault. It's not. It is now a responsibility to do something about them, but I don't want you to think it's your fault that you feel that way, because it's not. This pressure you feel can stop you from resting, from experiencing joy, from recovering, because there's always one more should. There's always one more supposed to that you're thinking of. It's that mental chatter that's getting in the way. When you say things to yourself like, oh, I should offer to help out with that presentation or that case or that project, or I should be spending more time with my family. I should be more grateful. I have no reason to feel this way. Or I should be handling this better. Like, what is wrong with me? Everyone else does it. Everyone else has it together. Why can't I just get it together? That's what I'm talking about. Where there's this constant dialogue of how you are not enough, how what you're doing is not enough, and what you should be doing instead. Pay attention to that dialogue and how often it shows up for you. The fifth sign is that your body is giving you clues, which I mentioned earlier, but you are ignoring them, or you're brushing them off, or you're thinking they're not a big deal, or it could be due to something else. We have to remember that burnout doesn't just live in the mind. It manifests in your entire body. But so many of us have learned to override or minimize how we feel in our bodies. We're not even taught how to feel in our bodies. We're not taught that. So it's no wonder that we get to this place and we're like, wait, my body's feeling this kind of way. I don't understand. It's not a surprise because we weren't taught to listen to our bodies intuitively. So we are actually conditioned to minimize signals that our bodies give us that something is awry or it's not right. You might dismiss chronic pain. I have seen and I have seen, observed, and experienced and heard, right, from clients, chronic back pain, sleep disruption. Sleep disruption is massive. That's a huge one. Headaches, stomach issues, like you can't eat, or you eat something, it doesn't feel right. You start having your gut lining is being impacted. You have skin rashes, fatigue for you becomes normal. When in reality, your body is waving this massive red flag, telling you that something is amiss and we need to make some kind of change because, something isn't right. So we have to listen to what our bodies are telling us, especially if you have not historically had any of those issues or any of those physical symptoms. So if you've had a headache every afternoon for weeks, something to look at, something to pay attention to. If you wake up more tired than when you went to bed consistently, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 times. I'm talking about it's been 2 weeks and you had a rough time, or there was a big project, there was a big sprint. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about for a longer period of time. Maybe you feel tightness in your shoulders and your neck and your chest every Sunday night before the week even starts. And you've been feeling like that for weeks and weeks and weeks. Again, it's a signal. Here's what I need you to know though. The real reason, and I'm doubling down on this because it's really important that you understand this is not something that is a flaw of yours, that you may be going through something like this. It is not a flaw of yours. It is not a character flaw. It is not a personal failure. This is often the result of the systems, the expectations, and internalized beliefs that tell us things like you have to prove your worth, you have to prove you're enough, that rest is lazy, that you should be doing something, quote unquote, doing something with your time at all times, that if you're not doing this other person is doing it and they're doing it better. That you need to be like so-and-so. That you're strong enough to carry everything. When the truth is no human could carry 50% probably of what you carry. And here's what is so, I find so fascinating and also so deeply saddening, is that the amount of shit that you do is literally like 1,000 times more than the average person. But you still think you're at 20%. Honey, you're at like 2,000%. But your perception of yourself and your standard is so high that it's never enough. So the goalpost will always be moving because you haven't defined for yourself what is enough anyway. And you're allowed. Look, if you are experiencing any of these things I'm talking about and what I'm saying is really resonating with you, I want you to know something. You are allowed to need support and to ask for it. Again, we're not great at asking for help. I get it. We're not conditioned to ask for help. We're conditioned to carry everything and be like, cool with that. We're conditioned to carry everything and being like, that's fine, but it's not fine. You're allowed to protect your peace. You're allowed to choose you and not run on the treadmill endlessly at the same fast speed all of the time. You can take a walk and step off and sprint when you need to. So here is this grounding self check-in you can use at the end of your day or even in the middle of a stressful moment. Ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, what am I feeling in my body right now? Where are you holding tension? Are you clenching your jaw? Is it shallow breathing? When's the last time you took a really deep breath? Your body often knows before your brain knows. Okay? Like if your shoulders are up and you're towards your ears, if you're holding your breath between meetings, if you have a pit in your stomach, those are things to pay attention to. So number 1, what am I feeling in my body right now? The second question as a check-in is to ask yourself, what emotion am I pretending not to feel or avoiding or distracting myself from? This is a question that really does invite radical honesty with yourself. Many high achieving women are emotionally intelligent for others, but emotionally avoidant with themselves. Again, we are conditioned and trained to do that. So it's not a flaw. It is not a personal failure. It is not your fault. It is what we've been conditioned to do, to hold all the things we hold for all the people we hold it for. So when you ask yourself this question, what emotion am I pretending not to feel? What emotion am I avoiding or distracting myself from? Maybe you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm pretending that I'm not disappointed. I'm pretending that I'm not angry. I'm pretending that I'm fine when I'm deeply exhausted. Those are just examples of what you might be saying to yourself. The third question in this grounding self check-in, this is to ground yourself, right? To pay attention, to get curious. The third question is, where am I abandoning myself? And I use that word very, very intentionally, abandonment. Where am I abandoning myself to meet others' expectations today? I know this question hits deeper because of that word abandonment and expectations, right? It invites reflection and boundary setting for you. And it moves the conversation from nice to do into what am I sacrificing and why the hell am I doing that? So I said yes to a project I didn't have capacity for. Again, I skip lunch to help someone else prep for their meeting when I have to prep for my meeting and I miss lunch. I told myself I shut down my laptop at 6 p.m., but I kept going because there's so much to do. I feel like I'm always behind. I don't want people to think that I'm not working hard or that I'm not committed or that I'm not reliable, I'm not responsible, all the things that you know we think. But instead, you can say, today, I choose to honor my boundary by 1, not checking email after 7 p.m. unless urgent and you text me. Because if you text me, okay, fine, urgent. Hopefully, you're not getting texts that are not urgent. Taking a full 30-minute break for lunch, maybe not instantly responding to, again, like a non-urgent text. Give it an hour or 2, or maybe respond tomorrow. So those are your 3 questions. In case you missed them and you're listening to me, and you're in your car, especially, sometimes we repeat things as hosts so that you can remember them. Because if you're driving, you're focused on the road, which is something that you should be focused on. Here are the questions. What am I feeling in my body right now? What emotion am I pretending not to feel? What emotion am I avoiding or distracting myself from? And the third question is, where am I abandoning myself to meet others' expectations today? You do not have to wait for a burnout to make changes that will help you feel better and feel good about how you are living and how you are working. You can start with awareness. All change, everything starts with self-awareness. It's not going to be perfect, but it starts with being just aware of what's going on and being honest about that. And awareness, when you follow it up with even one aligned action, is what brings you back to yourself. It helps bring you closer to yourself. And it's all about taking the next right step. Don't focus on the 5,000 things, just the one next right step that's in integrity with you and where you want to be and where you want to go and how you want to live and how you want to work. And look, if any of these signs or anything that I've said has resonated with you, this isn't a reason to feel shame. I want you to know that you're not the only one, as I have shared with you. Like, I've experienced this, so many people I work with have as well. This is just a signal to get curious and to care for yourself the way that you care for everybody else. This is not your fault. And I wish someone had told me that. This is not your fault. Before I hit, my therapist did tell me that when I got into therapy, but I wish beforehand, as I was experiencing these things and I didn't know what was happening, or maybe I did and didn't fully appreciate it, that there's nothing wrong with me, that I wasn't weak, that I wasn't broken, that I'm just a human who has pushed with such intensity for so long, for so many years, that it's natural for my body, my mind, and my spirit to be like, we kind of need a pause and we need to kind of do this life work thing differently. We can still accomplish what we need to accomplish, but maybe a different approach, Ivy. Or maybe what you want has changed and you want to figure out what the hell do you really want moving forward. So when you're working, you are crystal clear on what you're working so hard for. And this is why I do what I do, right? This is the kind of work I do with clients because I get it. This is what, when I speak with organizations and law firms, especially with women leaders who are tired of carrying the weight in silence, like, I like to offer this mirror, and not so people can share with every single person, because not everybody deserves to hear your story and deserves to hear your struggles. That's not everyone deserves to hear that. But it's part of why I do this work, because it's so important. I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. I don't want people to go through and be on the verge of burnout. And I'm telling you, if you read my book, Your Time to Rise, it will help you prevent it, because it allows you to take stock of where you are and decide, how do I want to live with more intention? So you're not in this reactive mode, and you understand the expectations. I talk about the weight of expectations in the book. You understand the conditioning you've been through, and you really start to believe it's not my fault that I feel this way. It's not my fault, and it's not a flaw, and it's not a failure that I operate this way. Operating this way actually has made me very successful. And now it might be a little unhelpful. So now I have to reset. The book helps you reset to find a path forward. So if you are resonating with any of this, get the book. Really. You don't necessarily need to work with me one-on-one in coaching. If you read this book and you do the exercises, you can get so far with that. Okay? Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Follow this podcast so you don't miss next week's episode, which is a big one, because I am talking about how to reset your boundaries and protect your energy with a lot less guilt. Until then, you know what I'm going to say. Remember, you're more powerful than you realize to take the next right step for you. There is no such thing as fearless. It doesn't exist. Let fear and let any doubt ride alongside you and do it anyway. Talk to you next time.